Cop accuses black woman of lying about her job. She's the aircraft engineer on duty. Airports echo with millions of fleeting stories, people arriving and departing, loved ones reuniting or saying farewells. Amid all that bustle, one woman's steady calm stands out like a beacon of purpose. Kiana Brooks isn't here to catch a flight. She's the on-duty aircraft engineer at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Her tool bag is as vital to her identity as her determination. But this day, the swirling crowds and roaring jet engines will become the backdrop of a high-stakes battle. A single confrontation with a skeptical cop will spark accusations, a whirlwind of drama, and a clash between truth and prejudice, revealing Kiana's unbreakable resolve. Kiana Brooks's fascination with airplanes began in a small brick house on Atlanta's south side, just below the flight path of countless jets landing at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. As a child, she would lie on her bedroom floor at dusk, eyes fixed on the sky as planes rumbled overhead. Those shining behemoths felt like chariots of possibility, crossing states and oceans, while Kiana nursed a fierce curiosity. How do they stay up there? Her grandmother, who raised her, encouraged that spark. On weekends, they'd sit by the window in rocking chairs, Kiana pointing out different aircraft silhouettes. Grandmother would listen patiently as Kiana read out facts from library books about the Boeing 747, the Airbus A320, and smaller commuter planes. Sometimes, Kiana jotted down diagrams of wings and landing gear in her homemade journal, determined to unravel the puzzle of flight. By high school, Kiana's love for aviation was unstoppable. She aced every science and math course offered, often the only black girl in advanced classes. Friends teased that she had rocket fuel in her blood. Teachers wrote glowing recommendations. Yet Kiana felt the weight of expectations. Her grandmother worked long hours as a home care aide, scraping by to keep Kiana's ambitions alive. College was never guaranteed, but Kiana, persistent as ever, applied for every scholarship she could find, devouring application essays with the same fervor she showed for aeronautical manuals. When she received an acceptance letter from Georgia Tech, complete with a partial scholarship, Kiana nearly collapsed with joy on the front porch. The very next day, she took an early morning bus to Hartsfield-Jackson just to stand by the observation deck. Watching planes ascend, Kiana promised herself she would someday work there, not as a flight attendant or passenger, but as the one keeping those planes safe. College was transformative but daunting. Kiana majored in mechanical engineering, focusing on aeronautical systems. She toiled in labs, endured sleepless nights, and sometimes felt the sting of being the only black woman in a lecture hall of 200. Whispers persisted, is she really up to the task? Professors who meant well sometimes overlooked her in class, but Kiana held firm, leaning on childhood dreams to power through. Over time, she found a tight-knit group of similarly passionate students, forging friendships that sustained her. An internship during her junior year placed Kiana at a repair hangar just outside the Atlanta airport. She spent summer days crawling through the belly of Boeing 767s, checking rivets and cables, her hands stained with hydraulic fluid. Despite the grueling conditions, sweltering Georgia heat, the thunder of engines overhead, Kiana was exactly where she wanted to be. Each greasy puzzle she solved felt like a step closer to proving she belonged among the experts. By graduation, Kiana had a sturdy resume and a reputation for meticulous work. That earned her a coveted spot at Hartsfield-Jackson's maintenance division, an environment of constant motion, where jumbo jets came in for quick fixes and urgent checks. She started on a lower rung, assigned to routine inspections of avionics systems and landing gear. Over months, she tackled bigger challenges, diagnosing sensor failures, rewiring faulty circuits. Slowly but surely, her co-workers recognized Kiana was no rookie. She had a gift for spotting issues others missed. Outside of work, Kiana tried to keep a balanced life. She volunteered at local STEM workshops for girls, remembering how vital early encouragement had been for her. She attended city events whenever time permitted, keeping an eye out for new developments in aviation technology. All the while, she felt a growing pride each time she pulled on her official jacket, clipped her ID badge to the front, and strode onto the tarmac. Still, Kiana couldn't ignore the subtle friction of being a black woman in a field overwhelmingly dominated by men. She'd grown accustomed to wide-eyed stares, especially from older travelers who'd see her with a wrench in hand. A few times, airport security had halted her, demanding more identification than her colleagues typically showed. Kiana learned to remain patient but firm, explaining that she was the engineer, not a confused passenger who'd stumbled backstage. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the busiest airport in the world by passenger numbers, became Kiana's stage. Day or night, she roamed its labyrinthine concourses, steel-toed boots echoing against polished floors. She thrived under pressure, never tiring of the reverberations of jet engines or the swirl of luggage carts. Life felt full of possibility. She had arrived at her dream's doorstep. But dreams never guarantee smooth paths. Beneath the shining terminals and collaborative spirit lay an undercurrent of bias, a tension waiting to snap. Kiana had seen glimpses of it in offhand remarks from co-workers or the surprised faces of travelers. She'd grown adept at managing it, brushing off microaggressions like specks of dust from her uniform. Then one sweltering summer morning, a uniformed cop she'd never met took one glance at Kiana's ID and decided it wasn't enough sparking a confrontation that would upend her routine, test her resilience, and thrust her into a storm of accusations. Neither Kiana's expertise nor her patient nature could have prepared her for the wave of suspicion about to crash upon her. That day, Kiana would need all the courage she'd amassed over years of defying expectations, to stand tall when her credibility was challenged in the very place she felt most at home, the airport's humming core, where mechanical wonders soared on the strength of meticulously maintained aircraft. And above them all, Kiana Brooks's unwavering resolve would finally face its greatest test. Kiana's day started typically enough. She awoke before dawn, sipped coffee while scanning maintenance requests on her phone, and left her modest apartment to beat Atlanta's infamous traffic. By 6:30 a.m., she stepped into the staff entrance at Hartsfield-Jackson, greeting the security personnel who recognized her. Under fluorescent lights, she passed rows of crew lockers, stuffed her purse in one, and headed out onto the concourse. Her phone buzzed. Manny, her direct supervisor, was messaging, "Manny, hey Kiana, we've got a Boeing 737 at Gate 2 with a flickering avionics display. Pilot wants it checked ASAP before the next flight." Kiana typed back, "On it." By the time she made it to Gate 2, Kiana found Manny waiting near the cockpit. The pilot, a middle-aged man with an anxious expression, explained how one of the screens had gone dark mid-approach. Kiana poked around the control panel, testing connections, while Manny ran a diagnostic from the maintenance tablet. Within half an hour, Kiana pinpointed a loose circuit board. She reseated it, tested the display, and satisfied the pilot that all was well. Just as she tidied her tools, Kiana felt a presence. Turning, she saw a tall, broad-shouldered police officer watching her from the plane's doorway. His name tag read Grant. His gaze swept from Kiana's head to her boots, pausing on her ID badge. Something in his stance bristled with suspicion. "Morning," Kiana said, trying for a friendly tone. "You work here?" Grant's voice held a skeptical edge. He tapped the corner of Kiana's badge with a blunt finger. She offered a polite smile. "Yes, sir. I'm the on-duty aircraft engineer." Her ID clearly displayed her name, Kiana Brooks Aircraft Maintenance. Grant's lips pressed into a thin line. "Never seen you before. This airport has thousands of employees," Kiana replied. "We might just not have crossed paths." Manny, sensing the tension, stepped forward. "Officer, Kiana's been with us for years. If you need confirmation, talk to me." Grant studied Manny, then Kiana again, as if expecting one of them to crack. After a moment, he grunted. "All right," he said, somewhat grudgingly. "Carry on. That should have been the end of it." Yet Kiana couldn't shake the chill that crept along her spine at the look in Grant's eyes. His stare was more intense than a routine ID check demanded. Maybe he's just cautious, she told herself. But her instincts warned otherwise. As Kiana moved on to the next assignment, an A320 requiring a brake inspection, she felt an odd sense of being watched. Passing through the concourse, she caught sight of Officer Grant again, lingering near a set of vending machines. When Kiana glanced his way, he shifted his attention to a passing family, as though he'd never been focused on her. It was a busy morning, and Kiana didn't have the luxury to dwell on one cop's suspicious attitude. She inspected the A320-320's brakes, swapping out a worn rotor. She then hustled to another gate, assisting a co-worker with a pesky cabin light glitch. The usual swirl of airport business enveloped her, dulling the memory of Grant's stare until Kiana emerged from a staff corridor and almost collided with him. "Something I can help you with, officer?" Kiana asked, striving for calm while her heart thumped. He shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Security's tight. Just making sure everything's in order." Kiana showed him her ID once more. "I have the clearance for every restricted area I enter." Grant's eyes flicked to the ID, then to Kiana's face. "Right," he muttered. With that, he stalked away, leaving Kiana trembling with a potent mix of anger and unease. At lunchtime, Kiana ducked into a cafeteria reserved for airport staff. Over processed turkey sandwiches and a bag of chips, she tried to soothe her nerves. She texted her best friend, "Nadine, weird morning. Some cop keeps trailing me." Nadine fired back concerned emojis and asked if Kiana wanted her to come down to the airport. Kiana replied no, she didn't want to blow this out of proportion, but a small voice in her head insisted something was off. Sure enough, Kiana soon learned from Manny that Officer Grant had been asking around about her. Had anyone verified Kiana's credentials? Did Manny have proof she was truly an engineer? Manny brushed it off as paranoia, but Kiana's stomach knotted. What was fueling Grant's suspicion? Kiana had faced doubt before, but never this level of scrutiny. She'd done nothing except her job with typical excellence. That afternoon, Manny directed Kiana to a wide-body Boeing 767 at Gate 4 that had reported hydraulic fluctuations. It meant crawling under the fuselage to check lines and fluid levels messy, but Kiana liked the challenge. She pulled on gloves, grabbed a flashlight, and squeezed past the landing gear. Pressurized lines hissed softly. Kiana tested valves, scanning for tiny leaks. After an hour, she concluded a sensor was giving false readings. Replacing it, she reconnected the system. As she emerged, Manny gave her a thumbs up. "The cockpit indicates normal pressure again." "You're our miracle worker," he joked. Kiana was about to respond when, like a recurring nightmare, Officer Grant materialized. "Ma'am," he barked, "need to see your ID again." She shot Manny a wide-eyed look but complied. "Is there a problem?" Kiana asked carefully. Grant ignored the question, taking his time examining the badge. Passengers filed past, glancing uneasily at the confrontation. Manny tried to intervene, but Grant silenced him with a raised hand. The officer turned his gaze to Kiana. "This says you're an engineer. but there's no mention of your qualifications. Manny spoke up, voice taut with anger. Her qualifications are on file with HR. She has a degree from Georgia Tech, also an FAA certification for aircraft maintenance. This is not some back alley operation. Grant's jaw clenched. We'll see. I'll be talking to your HR. He handed the badge back abruptly and strode off. Kiana's cheeks burned. Manny placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. You okay? She forced a nod, though her stomach churned with shame, anger, and a trace of fear. Something about Grant's hostility felt personal, as though he had singled her out. Kiana had seen enough glimpses of bias in her life to recognize it. He doesn't believe a black woman is truly an aircraft engineer. The possibility ignited a spark of rage. But Kiana also knew she had to tread carefully. A uniformed cop's power to escalate a scenario was no small concern. Later, Manny quietly told her, he's stirring trouble. Supposedly wants official proof of your position. We'll sort it. You keep working. Kiana nodded, trying to bury her anxiety in her tasks. But as she moved from gate to gate, the memory of Grant's stare made the hair on her arms stand on end. If he decided to escalate, Kiana feared it might disrupt everything: her career, her sense of belonging at the airport, even her personal safety. All she could do was wait, soldier on, and hope that this cop's fixation would blow over like a passing storm. Little did Kiana know, the tempest was only beginning, and she stood in its very eye. By midweek, Kiana's ordinary routine was punctuated by unsettling sightings of Officer Grant. He seemed to loom in the periphery, near gates, behind pillars, never interfering directly but always watching. Kiana tried to ignore him, focusing on the day's tasks, repairing faulty indicators, calibrating wing flaps, and triple-checking safety logs. Late one afternoon, as Kiana finished a tedious wiring job on a Boeing 777, Manny approached with a worried expression. HR wants to see you, he said quietly. Apparently, Grant filed a formal inquiry about your credentials. A wave of exasperation swept Kiana's features. You're kidding me. Manny shook his head. Wish I were. They said you should come by the HR office after your shift. He paused, voice lowering. I'll come with you. Kiana appreciated that. She dreaded the idea of standing alone in some sterile office, forced to defend her existence. She had the standard HR clearance, the references, the employee number, everything. Yet now she was being treated like an imposter. She tried to push the worry aside as she tackled the next assignment. A pilot had reported a strange rattling sound from the cargo hold of an Airbus A321. Kiana crawled through the cramped underbelly, discovering a loose ventilation panel. Nothing major, but a potential annoyance for flight crews. She tightened screws, ran a noise test, and declared it fixed. The pilot thanked her with relief, praising Kiana's thoroughness. Though Kiana smiled, an undercurrent of tension lingered inside. She thought, he trusts me. Why can't that cop? Finally, the shift ended. Kiana and Manny navigated a maze of hallways to reach the HR department nestled near the administrative wing. The corridor walls displayed motivational posters about teamwork and safety, but Kiana felt no comfort in them. A mild-mannered HR rep, Miss Taylor, invited them into a small office. She wore an apologetic smile. We received a notice from Officer Grant, Miss Taylor explained. He claims your personnel file is incomplete, raising questions about your role. Kiana's brows shot up. Incomplete how? Miss Taylor tapped at her computer, frowning. It appears there's a discrepancy between the name on your social security record and the name in our system. Could be a simple typo, but it flagged your record. I tried explaining to him this can happen with data entry errors. However, he insists on verifying everything. Manny let out an exasperated sigh. So Kiana's entire career is under scrutiny because of a clerical error? Miss Taylor nodded, looking pained. I'm so sorry. I just need to confirm your details. She turned to Kiana. Do you have a copy of your driver's license or any official ID besides this badge? Kiana handed over her driver's license, plus a well-worn copy of her Georgia Tech diploma that she kept in her locker for personal pride. Miss Taylor scanned the documents, typing furiously. After a few minutes, she gave a relieved grin. All right, we can fix the mismatch. Let me update your file. Officer Grant should be satisfied with these confirmations. Manny exhaled, leaning back in his chair. Thank goodness. Kiana, too, felt the tension in her shoulders ease. So that's that, right? This ensures no more issues? Miss Taylor grimaced. It should, but he seemed determined. I've seen officers be extra cautious, especially with high security areas. That said, he's not typical TSA or standard airport PD. He's a specialized law enforcement liaison. Sometimes they're under pressure to be hypervigilant. Kiana exchanged a look with Manny. Hypervigilant was one thing, harassment was another. Still, Kiana thanked Miss Taylor for her help, and the two left, hoping the corrected records would end the fiasco. Yet Kiana's relief was short-lived. The very next morning, as she walked onto the tarmac to inspect a Boeing 757, she spotted Grant approaching. Her pulse quickened. She clutched the freshly updated HR memo in her pocket, determined to show it if needed. Miss Brooks, he said sharply, I've looked into your file. There was a mismatch. Care to explain? Kiana calmly handed him the memo. It's resolved. A typo caused the discrepancy. HR cleared it up, and my credentials are valid. Grant scanned the paper, lips pressed in a thin line. He seemed almost disappointed there wasn't more to question. A beat later, he scoffed. We'll see about that. I'll be verifying everything with the FAA as well. I'm not convinced this is all legitimate. She bristled. You can contact the Federal Aviation Administration if you want. I'm listed as a certified aircraft maintenance technician. They maintain a public registry. Grant stuffed the memo in his pocket. I intend to. Before Kiana could respond, he pivoted and walked off. She stood there in stunned outrage, shoulders trembling. Manny approached, noticing her agitation. She relayed the conversation, feeling tears of anger burn her eyes. Manny clenched his jaw. He's stepping way out of line. I'll talk to the airport security director. Kiana's voice shook. He acts like I forged everything. I'm just trying to do my job. Hang in there, Manny urged. He'll run out of angles eventually. But Kiana feared the opposite. People with a vendetta rarely stopped without a catalyst. She felt Grant's hostility was personal, perhaps fueled by prejudice. The reality cut deeply. She'd busted every stereotype in her field, proven her competence daily, yet one man's suspicion threatened her livelihood. Worst of all, Kiana could see how easily this might escalate beyond a bureaucratic annoyance. A uniformed officer, emboldened by authority, could do real damage to her reputation or even her safety. The intangible weight of that knowledge settled over Kiana's heart like a storm cloud, overshadowing her once comforting routine at the airport. For now, Kiana steeled herself. She had planes to fix, travelers depending on well-maintained aircraft, and a rightful place at Hartsfield-Jackson. If Officer Grant wanted a showdown, Kiana Brooks would not go down without a fight. A rare hush settled over the airport's labyrinth of gates and terminals. Storm clouds gathered outside, threatening one of Atlanta's notorious summer downpours. Kiana paced near Gate 11, waiting for a Boeing 767 inbound from Chicago. The pilot radioed in about potential landing gear trouble. Kiana's job, be ready to assess it the moment wheels touched tarmac. Amid the usual pre-landing bustle, gate agents preparing announcements, ground staff positioning equipment, Kiana glimpsed Officer Grant yet again. He stood near a row of windows, posture rigid, scanning the concourse. That sense of being under a microscope returned, twisting Kiana's stomach in knots. She tried to ignore him, focus on the job. The plane taxied in moments later, crew and passengers heaving sighs of relief as the landing gear, while shaky, held firm. Kiana swiftly boarded, Manny trailing behind to examine the hydraulic systems. They rummaged beneath the cockpit floor, crouching over lines and valves, diagnosing a failing pressure sensor. Voices crackled over Kiana's handheld radio. She caught bits of conversation from ground staff. Security presence is high. Some officer is poking around. Kiana Brooks claims suspicion. The rest blurred into static. Kiana's pulse thundered. She pictured Grant canvassing employees to dig up anything he could twist. Not long after Kiana and Manny confirmed the sensor glitch, Kiana heard raised voices from the front cabin. She exchanged a startled look with Manny. Together they climbed out of the avionics bay and walked up the aisle. Near the aircraft's entrance stood Officer Grant, apparently in a tense exchange with the pilot and a flight attendant. "Sir, you're disrupting our turnaround," the pilot said firmly. "This flight needs to depart on schedule." Grant held up a hand. "I'm investigating a security risk. We can't have unknown personnel messing with planes." Kiana felt fury ignite. "Unknown personnel?" Manny stepped between Kiana and the officer. "She's not unknown. This is Kiana Brooks, our mechanical engineer. We literally just fixed your plane's sensor." Grant's cold gaze fixed on Kiana. "If that's true, I need her documentation again. And I'm not talking about some memo from HR," Manny sputtered. "This is insane. You've already verified everything." "The FAA registry," Grant cut him off, raising his voice. "I haven't heard back from the FAA yet." Passengers who hadn't yet deplaned slowed, gawking at the commotion. The pilot, worry etched on his face, pleaded, "Officer, we have to get these folks off so the next passengers can board. If you want to question staff, do it off the aircraft." Grant refused to budge, posture defiant. Kiana's heart pounded so loudly she feared everyone could hear it. She forced herself to speak calmly, though her voice wavered with anger. "You're accusing me of messing with planes. I'm literally employed to fix them. If you had read the logs, you'd see I do this every day." Grant's lips twitched. A good cover story if someone wanted access to critical systems. She flushed, outraged. Manny reached out, gently holding Kiana back. The flight attendant shook her head, looking frightened by the tension. Kiana noticed a passenger filming on their phone near row 6. "Fantastic," Kiana thought. "All we need is a viral confrontation." Suddenly, an airport manager appeared in the jet bridge, alerted by gate staff. Spotting Kiana and Manny cornered by Grant, he stepped in with authority. "Officer, please come with me to discuss your concerns in private. We need this aircraft cleared." Grant gave one final glare toward Kiana, then followed the manager out. Kiana let out a shaky breath. Passengers resumed disembarking. Manny turned to her, his expression a mix of anger and sympathy. "You okay, E?" She nodded numbly, fists clenched. "This has to stop," Manny sighed. "Let's finalize the sensor replacement, log everything, and keep a record. If Grant tries to claim sabotage, we'll have the documentation to show every step was protocol compliant." Kiana swallowed hard. "He's crossing lines, interrogating me on an active aircraft in front of passengers. This is harassment." They spent another half hour finishing the job, checking the fluid levels in the gear systems, and resetting the cockpit alarms. By the time Kiana exited, the plane was cleared for its next flight. A line of incoming passengers waited impatiently. Kiana avoided their gazes, aware that rumors of a security scare with an engineer might already be spreading. Outside, heavy rain battered the windows. Kiana stared into the downpour, feeling as if the storm mirrored her internal turmoil. Manny placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'll talk to upper management and the security director," he promised. We can't have an officer randomly questioning certified personnel mid-shift. Kiana nodded in gratitude, but a small voice inside whispered that Grant wouldn't retreat until he had something he could spin into wrongdoing. The knowledge twisted Kiana's stomach with apprehension. She trudged through the rest of her shift, performing routine checks on autopilot, her mind replaying the confrontation on the 767. That night, Kiana drove home through flooded streets. Rain hammered the windshield so hard she could barely see. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "This can't continue. I just want to do my job." She tried to imagine ignoring him, but the truth was, ignoring a determined officer with possible prejudices was like ignoring an oncoming collision. She needed allies, management, Manny, even passengers who'd witnessed her skill. Parking outside her small apartment complex, Kiana sat in the car for a moment, letting the rumble of distant thunder ground her. She recalled the pride of her earliest days on the job. Where had that sense of belonging gone, torn away by one man's relentless suspicion? But Kiana wasn't giving up. She'd come too far, from that little girl enthralled by planes, to a Georgia Tech graduate, to a recognized engineer with a proven track record. If Officer Grant wanted a war of attrition, Kiana resolved to meet him head-on, armed with evidence, community support, and her unwavering competence. Still, she couldn't help wondering, what if that isn't enough to stop him? The next morning, Kiana entered Hartsfield-Jackson anxious but determined. Manny had requested a meeting with the security director, Miss Leah Patterson, hoping an official stance would rein in Officer Grant's rogue behavior. Kiana joined Manny outside Patterson's office, a cramped space near the TSA screening area. Inside, Miss Patterson greeted them with a cordial smile. She wore a crisp blazer, her posture radiating command. Manny explained the situation, detailing how Grant repeatedly questioned Kiana's credentials, disrupted maintenance tasks, and even cornered her in front of passengers. Miss Patterson's frown deepened. "I've heard rumors about this. You have my apologies. That's not how we conduct security here." She typed notes on her tablet. "Officer Grant has some oversight from the local police, but he's assigned to the airport's specialized task force. I'll coordinate with his chain of command. However, we need more than hearsay. Could you provide formal statements?" Kiana spoke up, voice measured. "I can list the incidents with dates, times, plus witnesses. Manny and other staff can corroborate. There are possibly passenger videos too." "Good," Miss Patterson said, looking resolute. "That will help us open an internal review. The main question, why is he targeting you? If it's purely about your background, that's unacceptable. This facility has zero tolerance for discriminatory conduct." Relief stirred in Kiana. Finally, someone in authority taking this seriously. She thanked Miss Patterson, feeling hope flicker to life, but bureaucracy moved slowly, especially in a massive entity like Hartsfield-Jackson. Kiana knew it might be days or weeks before real action materialized. Meanwhile, she still had planes to maintain and a watchful officer looming. True to form, Kiana's day was packed. A wave of flights arrived mid-morning, each with potential mechanical quirks. Kiana methodically checked a Boeing 757-757's inertial reference unit, helped Manny recalibrate the thrust reversers on a 767, and replaced an APU starter on an A321. The hours flew by in a haze of sweat and focus. Around lunchtime, Kiana stopped to grab a quick meal at a busy airport cafe. Finding a corner table, she devoured a sandwich. Her phone buzzed texts from friends who'd caught wind of the drama. "Nadine, is it true some cops harassing you at the airport?" "That's messed up," Kiana typed a short reply. "Yeah, but I'm handling it." She avoided details, not wanting to fan the flames. Scrolling her phone idly, Kiana spotted a viral social media post. "Cop harassing female engineer at Atlanta airport. There was a short video clip from a passenger's phone, grainy footage of Kiana confronting Grant on that 767. Kiana's heart lurched. The video had thousands of views, with commenters arguing about whether Kiana was truly an engineer or an imposter. Others pointed out how calmly Kiana spoke, compared to the officer's brusque demeanor. Cheeks flushed, Kiana locked her phone. This wasn't how she wanted to be recognized. She dreaded the airport PR department's reaction if the story exploded further. But maybe this can help prove he's overstepping. The internet, after all, could be a double-edged sword. Resuming her rounds, Kiana felt eyes on her from more than just Grant. Staff whispered about the video, some expressing support, others speculation. Manny tried to keep Kiana shielded, diverting random inquiries so she could focus on repairs. But Kiana sensed the swirl of rumor intensifying. Then, late in the afternoon, an unexpected crisis slammed into Hartsfield-Jackson like a thunderclap. A Boeing 737 inbound from Miami declared an emergency. Smoke in the cabin, possibly from an electrical short. Hundreds of souls on board, uncertain if they'd land safely. Alarms blared across Kiana's phone, Manny's console, and the overhead system. Emergency response needed at Gate 26. Kiana sprinted to the gate, adrenaline surging. Fire trucks and medics lined the tarmac. As the plane approached, flight attendants had prepared passengers for an immediate evacuation if necessary. Kiana joined the mechanical response team, hearts pounding. The aircraft touched down roughly, black smoke curling from under the belly. Ground staff positioned stair trucks, motioning passengers to exit swiftly. Kiana raced forward, scanning for visible flames. The acrid smell of burnt plastic stung her nostrils. She yanked on protective gloves and a respirator. Manny appeared, his eyes wide. "We suspect an electrical meltdown near the power control unit." Kiana nodded, intense focus kicking in. "Let's kill the plane's internal power and hook up ground electricity. We can't let it spark again." The maintenance crew pried open side panels. Kiana spotted charred insulation on a main wiring harness. This was serious. She barked instructions for foam extinguishers and gave Manny a headlamp to see deeper. The moment Manny shone the light, Kiana's suspicions confirmed. Multiple cables overheated. The protective sheathing melted. This plane was in dire need of a power system overhaul. While paramedics cleared the last passengers, Kiana and her team cut the main breakers, ensuring no residual current fed the smoldering wires. Sirens wailed, pilots scrambled, the entire gate area consumed by the emergency. Kiana found clarity in the chaos, methodically preventing a potential explosion. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Officer Grant. He hovered behind the assembled medics, gaze locked on Kiana yet again. Did he think Kiana caused this? Or was he just fixated on the spectacle? Kiana ignored him. Lives were at stake. She wouldn't let personal vendettas compromise safety. Finally, the burning smell diminished. With power severed and the meltdown localized, Manny nodded at Kiana. "We can move it to the hangar for a full teardown once it's stable." An airline manager, breathless with relief, approached Kiana. "Thank you. If you guys hadn't acted so quickly, this could have been catastrophic." Kiana mustered a faint smile, adrenaline still spiking. This was her job, ensuring everyone could fly safely, no matter the threat. But as the crisis wound down, Kiana's mind flicked to Grant, the ever-present threat in uniform. She glanced around. The officer was gone, vanished into the crowds of responders. A creeping dread lingered. He might spin any major incident to fuel his suspicions. Kiana prayed her thorough logs and the testimonies of Manny and the pilot would protect her if Grant tried anything. For now, Kiana clung to the satisfaction of a crisis averted. She reaffirmed her vow. No matter how intense the scrutiny, she would hold her ground. She was Kiana Brooks, aircraft engineer, proven once more under fire. News of the smoldering Boeing 737 spread quickly, overshadowing even the viral video of Kiana's confrontation with Officer Grant. The airport's operations team held an emergency debrief, praising Kiana and Manny's swift response. Kiana found a moment of solace in that recognition, a reminder that competence spoke louder than prejudice, at least among those who valued results. But the respite was short-lived. 2 days later, Kiana was summoned for a formal interview with a panel from airport security, the airline's risk management department, and a representative from the local police. The stated purpose: to clarify details regarding the Boeing 737 incident and general security protocols. Kiana suspected Grant's machinations behind the scenes. She arrived in a conference room lined with glass windows overlooking the busy tarmac. Manny joined her for moral support. On the other side of a long table sat 3 officials: Miss Patterson, the security director, a stern-faced risk manager named Mr. Rodriguez, and a local police lieutenant Kiana hadn't met. Officer Grant lurked in a corner seat, arms folded, expression unreadable. Miss Patterson offered Kiana a polite nod. "Thank you for coming. We'd like to discuss your involvement in the 737 emergency response, then address some broader security inquiries raised by Officer Grant." Kiana took a steadying breath and recounted the meltdown, the engine smoke, her immediate actions to shut off power, the subsequent checks. Manny corroborated every point, praising Kiana's quick thinking. The risk manager asked for technical specifics, which Kiana detailed with clarity. The lieutenant nodded, taking notes. Then came the shift in tone. Miss Patterson cleared her throat, glancing at Grant. "We also have questions regarding your credentials." Officer Grant claims certain irregularities. "Could you confirm you hold an FAA aircraft maintenance technician certificate?" Kiana stiffened. "Yes. My certificate number is on file with HR. I can provide it now if needed." Grant chimed in, voice clipped. "I contacted the FAA. They say they're processing the query." No official confirmation yet. Kiana's frustration flared. "The FAA registry is public. You can search my name. Kiana Brooks. My certificate's valid." Manny slid a printed copy of Kiana's listing from the FAA website across the table. Kiana had prepared it after the meltdown fiasco, anticipating more pushback. "There you go," Manny said pointedly. "Straight from the official registry." Miss Patterson examined it, then passed it to the lieutenant, who studied it with a frown. "This looks legitimate," the lieutenant acknowledged. Grant's jaw tightened. "Documents can be forged." Kiana, trembling with anger, forced her voice to stay calm. "I have no reason to forge anything. I've worked here for years without issue until you singled me out." A hush fell. "Miss..." Patterson broke it, sounding firm. "Officer Grant, if there's no substantial evidence of wrongdoing, we need to close this matter. Miss Brooks is recognized by her supervisors, HR, the FAA, the trifecta of validation." Grant glared at Kiana, then he pivoted. "We also have to consider sabotage possibilities. That 737 meltdown, someone tampered with the wiring. She had direct access to the aircraft." Shock thundered through Kiana. "What are you implying?" Manny jumped in, voice rising. "That's absurd." Kiana stopped the meltdown. She saved that plane. But Grant dug in. "Criminals sometimes stage a hero moment to deflect suspicion. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but we shouldn't dismiss it." Kiana's chest constricted. She sputtered, Are you insane? Risking hundreds of lives just to what? Be a hero?" Silence gripped the room. "Mr. Rodriguez," the risk manager, finally spoke in measured tones. "We have no evidence the meltdown was maliciously set. preliminary inspection suggests worn insulation led to a short circuit. This happens over time, especially if maintenance schedules weren't perfect. Miss Brooks found it, not caused it. Miss Patterson nodded firmly. Agreed. Kiana, you can step outside for a moment while we discuss next steps. Manny, please remain as well. Heart pounding, Kiana stood, fighting the urge to hurl accusations at Grant. She left the conference room, shutting the door behind her. The corridor outside felt suffocating. She paced, replaying the vile insinuation in her head that Kiana orchestrated the meltdown. The idea was unthinkable, monstrous. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Manny emerged, face flushed with anger and relief. They're shutting him down, Kiana. Miss Patterson demanded a formal inquiry into his behavior. The risk manager sided with us, saying the meltdown was mechanical wear. That's in line with the official inspection report. Grant's sabotage claim is baseless. Kiana's knees felt weak. So, they're not investigating me. Not anymore, Manny confirmed. If anything, he might be under investigation for harassment. Kiana trembled with gratitude. Thank you, Manny. I couldn't have done this alone. He squeezed her shoulder. You're not alone. The truth is on your side. Let's get out of here. As they made their way back to the maintenance hangar, Kiana felt a swirl of emotions, relief, indignation, a lingering sense of danger. Grant's attempt to paint her as a saboteur signaled a desperation she hadn't anticipated. She wondered if the official censure from Miss Patterson would finally rein him in. But bullies rarely give up easily, and Kiana sensed the final showdown was still looming. For now, at least. She breathed easier, knowing that key figures at the airport recognized her innocence and valued her skill. She would keep up the good fight repairing planes, protecting passengers, and proving that competence and integrity stood stronger than any prejudice-fueled campaign. In the days that followed the tense conference, Kiana noticed a subtle shift in the airport's atmosphere. Word of Officer Grant's accusations, followed by the higher-ups' dismissal of them, spread among employees. Mechanics she barely knew approached Kiana to offer solidarity, outraged by Grant's insinuations. A pilot who'd once been indifferent told her, "That cop has no business tarnishing someone who saved more flights than I can count." Meanwhile, Miss Patterson's internal review of Grant gained traction. Rumor said she discovered multiple complaints filed against him, mostly from minority employees subjected to aggressive questioning. Kiana found both relief and sorrow in the news relief that it validated her experience. Sorrow that others had endured it too. She wanted him gone, or at least stripped of the authority he misused. At the same time, Kiana's professional star rose higher. The airline recognized her critical role in recent emergencies, awarding her a commendation for exemplary service under pressure. Manny teased that Kiana would be running the entire maintenance division soon. And Kiana's phone buzzed daily with messages from friends celebrating her story's positive turn, though the viral video still circulated, reminding everyone how close she came to humiliation. Officer Grant was notably absent from Kiana's daily path. She assumed Miss Patterson's inquiry forced him to lay low or face suspension. Part of her worried he might resurface with a vengeance. But for nearly a week, Kiana worked in relative peace, regaining the sense of purpose that had been stolen by his scrutiny. Then, on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon, Kiana received an urgent page while she was mid-inspection of a Boeing 717-717's landing gear. Manny's voice crackled through her walkie-talkie. "Kiana, come to Gate 9. We have a 757 with an engine issue that might affect departure. They're calling you specifically." Kiana hurried over, heart pounding with the familiar adrenaline surge of a mechanical challenge. A small crowd had formed near the gate. The flight was bound for Los Angeles, but the captain had noticed an unusual vibration in the right engine during startup. Kiana pulled on her gloves and hopped into a maintenance van with Manny, who drove her across the ramp to the parked aircraft. The pilot, a woman named Captain Reeves, briefed Kiana at the door, engines making a metallic clank at idle. Might be a failing turbine blade. Kiana nodded and stepped onto a scissor lift to examine the engine intake. She used a flashlight and mirror to inspect the blades for cracks. Manny relayed info from the cockpit, reading engine performance data. After a tense 15 minutes, Kiana spotted the culprit, a dent in one blade, possibly from foreign object damage, threatening to unbalance the turbine. "We'll have to replace the blade or ground the plane," Kiana declared. "This isn't safe for transcontinental flight." Captain Reeves sighed but agreed, better safe than sorry. She prepared to disembark her passengers, expecting a delay or a plane swap. Kiana hopped down, calling for the necessary parts. Then, from behind a fuel truck, Kiana caught sight of movement. Out stepped Officer Grant, wearing a grim expression. Her heart skipped a beat. Not again. Manny also spotted him, lips flattening. Grant approached, eyes flicking from Kiana to the half-disassembled engine. "What's going on here?" Kiana inhaled. "A damaged turbine blade. We're grounding the plane for repairs," he snorted. "Convenient. Another sabotage scenario?" Manny bristled. "She's preventing a disaster, not causing it." Grant didn't even look at Manny. He stepped forward, looming over Kiana. "I heard about the inquiry. Don't think that means you're untouchable. If I find real proof you're up to no good." Manny cut him off, voice shaking with anger. "Officer, Miss Patterson has an active review on your conduct. If you harass Kiana again, you'll face consequences." Grant's nostrils flared. "I'm doing my job." Kiana's temper snapped. She stood tall, meeting his glare. "Your job is to ensure safety. You're interfering with someone who's literally keeping planes safe. Everyone from pilots to admin backs me." Grant opened his mouth to retort, but a sharp voice interrupted. "Officer Grant!" They all turned to see Miss Patterson herself, striding across the tarmac, an authoritative scowl on her face. "Stand down immediately." Grant hesitated, then stepped back. Miss Patterson glanced at Kiana. "You're good here, Miss Brooks?" Kiana nodded. "We found the issue. The plane won't fly until it's fixed." "Excellent. Return to your work. Officer Grant, come with me." Her tone brooked no argument. Grant gave Kiana one final, venomous glare before following Patterson away. A wave of relief cascaded over Kiana, her hands shaking slightly. Manny let out a low whistle. Wow, talk about timing. She must have caught wind of him prowling around again. Kiana exhaled a ragged breath. "I hope this time he's done for good." They replaced the damaged blade, though it took a couple hours to secure the correct part. Passengers were rerouted, but Kiana's thorough fix ensured the plane could eventually fly safely. By the end of the day, Kiana was exhausted, yet buoyed by Patterson's decisive intervention. If Grant's final intimidation attempt was all he had left, Kiana felt certain she'd weathered the worst of it. Little did she know how swiftly karma would deliver its verdict. The following morning, Kiana arrived to a flurry of messages. Manny flagged her down in the corridor, excitement dancing in his eyes. "Kiana, you won't believe it. Officer Grant's been placed on immediate suspension, pending a formal hearing. Miss Patterson told me the decision came down late last night." Kiana's jaw dropped. "Suspension?" Manny nodded vigorously. Turns out the internal review found multiple violations of protocol, not just with you, but other employees he harassed. Patterson recommended disciplinary measures, and the local police liaison agreed. A sense of immense relief and vindication washed over Kiana. She let out a shaky laugh. "So it's finally over," Manny grinned. "Finally. You can do your job without a shadow following you, and there's more Rumor says some passengers complained directly to the airline about his confrontation on that 767. Their statements may have sealed his fate. Kiana remembered the passenger who filmed them. She felt a surge of gratitude toward anyone who stood up for the truth. Sometimes public scrutiny can be a powerful force. She asked quietly, "Do we know if he'll be fired?" Manny shrugged. "Could happen. Or maybe they'll relocate him. But either way, he won't be harassing you again." It was the sweet taste of justice. Kiana thought back over the weeks of intimidation, being followed, doubted, accused of sabotage. Now, by the airport's own system, he was facing the consequences. She felt no sympathy for the man who tried to upend her career. She only hoped it deterred others who might think to question her worth based on bigotry. The day seemed brighter, the terminals more welcoming. Kiana tackled her tasks with renewed vigor, inspecting a 777 cargo door latches, troubleshooting a faulty seat recline mechanism in a cramped cabin, and assisting Manny in a jet bridge malfunction. Everywhere she went, colleagues congratulated her on being in the clear. Even the pilot, who once looked uncertain about Kiana's abilities, gave her a thumbs up as she passed. In the late afternoon, Kiana was summoned to a small ceremony in a staff lounge. She assumed it was just more briefing on new protocols, but Manny had orchestrated something special. A cluster of co-workers, mechanics, supervisors, flight attendants gathered around. One of the airline managers, Miss Greenwood, presented Kiana with a certificate of excellence, praising her unwavering professionalism under relentless scrutiny. "We value your contributions more than ever, Miss," Greenwood said, voice carrying over scattered applause. "Your work has been exemplary and your resilience inspiring. This token of appreciation can't match the dedication you show daily, but please know we see you, Kiana Brooks." Kiana cradled the certificate, tears pricking her eyes. She glanced at Manny, who beamed like a proud older brother. The group broke into cheers, clapping Kiana on the back. The swirl of positivity filled her heart, washing away the bitterness of the ordeal. As the applause died down, Kiana found a moment alone, stepping outside onto an employee terrace that overlooked the runways. Planes glided in and out, silver birds bringing countless stories from far-off places. Kiana breathed in the jet-fueled air, feeling her chest expand with gratitude. Not so long ago, she was a little girl gazing skyward, dreaming of understanding airplanes. Now, in the face of adversity, she had proven her right to stand among them, a caretaker of flight's wonders. Karma had indeed swung like a pendulum. Grant's attempts to tarnish Kiana had only elevated her standing. She reflected on how fleeting but powerful these reversals of fortune could be. Though satisfied that justice was served, Kiana resolved to keep championing any colleagues who might face unfair doubt in the future. She had emerged not just a victor, but a potential mentor to others who yearned for a place in the high-stakes world of aviation. With the sun setting over busy runways, Kiana turned back inside, certificate in hand, a quiet smile touching her lips. She had work to finish, planes to clear for takeoff, travelers to keep safe, and now she could do so without fear overshadowing her every move. The final echoes of sun faded beyond the runways as Kiana Brooks concluded another shift at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. The Boeing 767 she'd repaired earlier soared overhead, a graceful reminder that skill and perseverance can defy any turbulence. After weeks of being tailed, interrogated, and unjustly accused, Kiana stood vindicated. Officer Grant's suspension signaled that prejudice and intimidation held no power against undeniable competence. All around the airport, staff whispered the same sentiment. Kiana Brooks was the real deal, a woman whose expertise saved planes and whose integrity inspired others. In the quiet hum of the concourse, Kiana took one last, satisfied look at the aircraft lights glimmering outside. Challenges would arise again, but she would face them armed with the knowledge that truth and diligence prevail. If her story moved you to stand for what's right, please remember to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more uplifting tales. Safe travels always.